Alright, Johan, is there anything interesting in the shop today then?
Well, believe it or not, I've got the Fujifilm X100 range here. I got the version 1, the X100, and I got the X100V, which is the 5th range. They're both an APS-C, so crop frame sensors with a 35mm equivalent lens on it. They've come a long way since the X100 to the X100V. Weather sealed, not weather sealed. There's also some great features on both cameras that they've carried through the whole range, which is the hybrid viewfinder, which personally is one of my favorite things. Especially being a documentary photographer, this is a great camera to go out on the street. The 35mm lens gives you great ability to capture those street shots, and the best thing about it is you can just stick it in your pocket and off you go and go on with your day.
Amazing. One of them is actually a limited edition black, and why is that interesting?
Well, believe it or not, the X100 range first came out in silver. It was never intended to be black, even though now today black is the most popular version of the X100 range. So at the time this was quite revolutionary because Fujifilm decided to make it in black.
Amazing. Alright, pass it over, let's do a video then.
Here we go.
I've got a little bit of a special one today. We've got two cameras, both of the same brand, of the same model, but two separate generations. Let's check them out and see how crazy a difference it is between then and now when it comes to a signature camera such as this. So here it is, the X100 Black, where things really began for Fuji and where people really started trusting them to do some really awesome stuff with the cameras. I must admit, using this camera now, it feels so old and clunky. Like, it just doesn't work with you quite as much as the newer generation does. Like, I can see the vision as to what they were creating. Of course, this camera is never going to be as fast as the new X100V. It never was going to be. But what I want to do here is really kind of show how far we've come in such a short amount of time when it comes to camera tech. The X100, I think, is a great example of how much a camera can evolve over a long time, still have its root and core value, but just become better, a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Fuji have very much embraced that kind of theology when it comes to the ergonomics of the actual camera. You can see with the X100V, it's a lot more simple. You've got everything you need in a really nice place. And then with the X100, it's a little bit more traditional for a digital camera. Putting the photos side by side of the same shots, can you tell which one is actually the X100V and the X100V? This one was the X100, and then this one is the X100V. You can really tell the difference in quality of the photos. One big standout when it comes to the X100 cameras in particular is how pocketable they are and how fun they are just to shoot with. You can definitely see why these cameras were considered ahead of the time. Biggest thing though is I do notice a lot of like screen latency, and it's quite hard to really like look around with this particular camera, but it's always really going to be like that. But when it comes to the Fuji cameras in particular, what you can really see and what you can really tell is the amount of thought that's gone into just the general experience of shooting with it. Now, it's not perfect. It never was going to be perfect, being the first generation of what ended up being perhaps one of the biggest series of cameras ever made. I'm just going to take this photo. The other side of when it comes to Fuji X100 series cameras and why they're popular is because it's the digital film camera. So what Fujifilm have done, and because their color science has been, used for ages, they've actually put a lot of film simulations inside of their cameras, which is ultimately what made them some of the most popular cameras you can buy on the market. Now I'm switching over to the X100V. This is pretty much one of the hardest to get cameras at the moment, and you can see why. Just experiencing the X100, I mean, there's no comparison. I'm gonna label this a comparison, but there's no comparison really. You knew that, I knew that. But you can see how much time has gone into creating a product that's pretty much almost perfect. See if we can get a photo here a second. The camera itself has actually got a much nicer click to it as well. It is also nigh on to 400 times faster, I think. Being on such an old system there for a little while, oh my days, it was hurting. And that's something which I think for a long time you don't really see in cameras when it comes to new generations, is how much the speed has actually changed. Of course, there is always progress when it comes to the next generation of cameras, and the X100V doesn't disappoint here. Video quality is something to mention here as well, because it started on HD and now you've got 4K video. In fact, some people actually rate this as a really nice vlogging camera because of its simplicity. Bottom line is, it's a fun and honest camera. I put a poll out on my social media the other day asking if generative fill was a tool or is it cheating? Is it a way to really bring out your photos, or does it take away from them? Two cameras of two different ends of the spectrum from the same brand, on the same model, just different generations apart. I remember when I worked at the camera shop, I think it was up to the X100T at that point. And it's a camera that has always kind of like gauged my interest, because that filmic looking cameras I really do quite like, and it's not something that gets widely put into a lot of cameras these days. But she is absolutely gorgeous. The X100V, I can see why it's popular. It's a camera that has been polished by generations, because realistically it's only a few cameras these days that actually go up to the 5, the 6 variants. I mean, the A7s do, but you don't really see that with the Canon system. It's still very new, still very, you know, it's still starting out in this side of the industry with those sort of like mirrorless cameras. I mean, what you got in both of these cameras is a strong APS-C size sensor. These cameras aren't designed for professionals, they're designed for people that are excited about the art form of photography, and mainly street photography at that. It's a camera that can quite easily slip into your pocket and just have a good time. If it was me, I'd probably be looking maybe at the X100T variation, maybe the X100F, because these are hard to find at the moment. If you're looking for one, this is a used one that's in Camera Centre UK. Don't know what Fuji are going to do with it in the future. I'm excited to see what they do with it in the future. If there's something to be said from just comparing the two iterations of this camera, I will say it has advanced, obviously, but the core feeling of using the camera is very much the same. It feels right in your hand, it's nice and comfortable. Biggest improvements from what I can see is the user interface. So the UI in this camera, in the X100V, is, it works with you, you know, it knows where all the settings that you want are, and once you get the hang of it, it's a lot of fun to use. Biggest side to why I'd like to actually have this camera is to set it into film mode, so no log, no color grading, just have a beautiful image just straight out of the bat, and it takes a lot of the hassle out of it and really gives you what you love out of the actual taking of a photo and experiencing just what's happening in and around. No?
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, do you want to ask a question?
Oh, thank you. What's happening?
So they've just turned on the heating lights. I don't know if the image is actually still good. Point is though, these cameras are absolutely stunning and so fun to use. Of course, the X100V is better, it's always going to be better, but when it comes to the setup that you get with this is another one that's come and used recently, alright? This is an X100 limited edition black, because at the time they only did a silver variant of the X100. Now black is standard, they do a silver and they do a black variant, right? But this is a limited edition X100, a brilliant thing if you're actually into collecting sort of like cameras that are important for a generation. And I think the X100 really started something special when it comes to these small semi-compact cameras. And when I say semi-compact, it's a little bit bigger than what you would expect out of a compact camera like an RX100 or other kind of small compact cameras to go in your pocket. This does fit in a jacket pocket quite nicely, and it's just awesome. The other thing to mention when it comes to these cameras is that they actually are entirely different from anything that's still going even to today. And when it comes to the technology inside of them, what I find really impressive is actually the hybrid EVF. So just to kind of give you a quick lowdown, you have mirrorless, you have DSLRs, and you have rangefinder cameras. So DSLRs have a single plane of glass that goes up and down, and you can view it optically. What you see in the camera is what you get, essentially. Mirrorless take that out, allows you to have a much smaller, compact body, but you don't get that optical viewfinder. When it comes to rangefinder cameras like this, you can actually have the optical viewfinder, at least in the Fuji range, when it comes to the X Pro 3 and the X100. They actually have a hybrid mode as well, so they actually have a screen inside of here that flips up and flips down depending on kind of like how you really want to shoot. Because I know that a lot of people that like the rangeformer format on camera actually prefer to shoot optically rather than with a screen that pops up and down. It's really quite fun. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you share, like and subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day.